Alright, I was my main fa and Chasuko free mega TV. I saw ye M Fambrow. Yankopon Asia Papa. Say I bring a binano. Tim a tire chi. I was my main fan Chasuko and we are for Kent. We are for Kent worldwide. Soundsona a movement for Kent worldwide. Yes. Sounds me mammy, Royal B, my main fa and Chenny B, and for mammy, me mammy. Chiba for mammy Yankopon Asia Papa. Any dibia Mumboa. Any support Amudima Mega TV. I was here. Papa, I could see a day soon, Yankopo in show, any Obibia way. Uncle Kwesi Pratt didn't say be abetuda. Now, you name him say Uncle Kwesi Pratt, the chief editor, the man inside the Bon Cratano, or sounds of cry program, radio station, BTC, despite media, OK FM, or your pandit ne adiade. Na edru Saturday ayememe de bi okopan African TV any radio good okopie ho no ma aya sina ejin kwa no se mi yef mfanche me omo program bi omo to din allergy and allergy sa program no omo ka Ghana ho nsem omo ka Ghana ho nsem na we na yebra Uncle Kwesi Pratt di ensimbi akoto bia eho no na nsem o kan o kirema yewura Dr Bawumia nkasa o hwe ne gestures o he papa no ne serie papa no hwe ne movement any bra o kasa de o ye ne ho especially okogina UPSC ho no di wa na onu anim se odi ntro onu anim se wo fail but o hwe papa no ne dwumadie ne tibia na wo mu na sebi chese papa no se no enka ne kan ye ne din se obeka but no kure wo no na ye ba kope papa ni nya psychological attention so a team of doctors intimi entenase na omhwehwe papa na dwimu no mu se papa no bibia eyoki e wona kachia Kwesi Pratt kan se bibiri na ohwe de wa osi kasa e meni no kure die na chese yewura Dr Bawumia e no kure because me medical be ka chem so papa no ohwe ne kasa ye the way we see the true why you bold and why you so confident enough or the two on man that said na or kasana so just say you don't understand unimaginable and the member person beche no yankoi na yinkoti and some Kwesi Pratt yes Uncle Kwesi ono so dey some of the two bia e was show no so e Pan African TV any radio good yenti Uncle Kwesi Pratt and Sema or the etu idra.
Well, I'm going to start with something that I have not had the courage to speak about, since the so-called vision of Dr. Bawumia was unveiled.
Okay.
I was particularly worried about his apparent overexcitement, which was visible from the very beginning of his address to the
end. And to a chemo share and Nijibia is a Nijis to Wonimu, or Jim, I won't tear see since or Sassian. So do we, say, not I yet. So the Uncle Kwesi.
And his overexcitement, was reflected in his body movements. It was reflected in his unwarranted laughter, and so on, And I was so very worried about him. You see, that kind of overexcitement, which is visible and so on, in some instances will call for medical examination. Something is wrong. And I'm hoping that psychoanalysts who watched him, clinical psychologists who watched him and so on, may want to advise. Was that overexcitement? It's not normal. watch his body movements and so on. You understand? So I was particularly worried about that. And since then, I've insisted that he ought to be pitied rather than scorned. And I insist that this gentleman really deserves our pity.
Hey, Intinas and Moish, I was saying, Bawumia Mobo. Na yitimi a chassis, bo mpayibi, and I see a chassis, a more qualiful, na be muhwe, we should feel pity for him. I was saying, because your uncle Kwesi can, Papa na Kwesi, ni bibi oyi biano, just say, oh yeah, dibia, something I own tears. Suddenly, I shall see a coso. Into Papa, uhia say ye pity no, uhia medical attention, yenti uncle Kwesi, and summer oka editwaso.
After listening to him and watching him, I'm beginning to think that we need to revise the English dictionary. Completely revise the English dictionary. Because there was nothing about a vision in what he presented. Essentially what he presented was a wish list. A wish list. And that wish list itself had not been properly crafted to the extent that he ends up self-indicting and validating his opponents. And it was troubling, you understand? Now, why do I talk about validation of his opponents? Many of the things that Dr. Bawumia says that he's going to scrap are things that were introduced by his administration, which his opponents criticized,
Sure.
and his opponents were shouted down. So even the final analysis, he comes to admit that his opponents were right and he was wrong, or his government was wrong. Does that not amount to validation of his opponent's position? And indeed, let's take e-levy.
And in some way, you Kwesi Eka, Uncle Eka in Anise. And Nema Ghana for even opposition party MPP for NDC for air shouting. Said the government shouldn't implement it. The government shouldn't bring it. Such as a year Mokani saying betting tax 10% e-levy or bechechim and any kikaka one ye na soon kunga kase bianco and a Bawumia so bob scrabble intino chese Bawumia senior chess abano it is at fault problem bu honum and our year the ultimate and money she be go appointment intino and yet ambition chese your can say be any ambition as any vision and all can once but any wish the obo betimi aye interesting yen to aso tedi bia kan Bawumia se man comfort nti ase uncomfort nti ase ye ka se Bawumia he is an empty-headed man oto no makufo ado any achima fe so mo chese oni tima dwen no mo ayi nti se ohun de onye bio ni tima dwen no mo ayi ene na no kasaye niema na oso betimi aye ane wantimi anye nyina ne abone se bi dam ene wasene ni chances na inti no kasa obi antie because we say obey we already nunya nye yento aso.
Bawumia today is looking us in the face and saying that, look, if I become your president, I would abolish e-levy. Okay? He is realizing that today. Others realized it 2 years ago. So on the basis of e-levy, its propriety or its impropriety, who deserves?
I feel na Bawumia no watch. I feel na what is e-levy number. Yes, it's I feel na what na see who say e-levy number because odwin say Ghana for ye Jimmy nti bra o no be pay o man ni madi no nti no o be sin akobak equity na Ghana for bra na ye sunu de wanti o but I feel the what na see who say dey bi enkofo no nsema no mo ka no say my new year otherwise I'm not going to get the votes. Nti I was say me bana me be dadom. Say me bana me nyanyi ya obi ntimi enka bibi mfa nkyere me. You get it? Eti waba e na oba be di ntoro akire say oba obi yi level fi on. Meanwhile oba wonyi e ntoro na odi. O kan de agine samba keke. Ekufu ado furata ne mom kai kan of santi be die to. They are all aware say papa no ba wonyi. O mo nyina atena se edi nkomo. Ena sebi Bawumia ko kan isemi. So they are all much aware say Bawumia entimi nyimfiri honom sebi eyense keka bi ena Bawumia e kan keke yenti no.
That's your vote. The one who saw it later, the one who implemented the policy which was bad, which has worsened the state of the national economy, or the one who from the very beginning saw that there was a problem with e-levy. Who deserves your vote? This is clear as daylight. Now, there's also this aspect that must be exceedingly worrying. You understand? And Dr. Bawumia himself has described himself as an apprentice. He has described himself as an assistant headmistress.
Apprentice, do you understand apprentice? Now see we describe no as a mate, driver's mate, you know. That's mean by apprentice, meaning say gan castle is a him for castle, what I say in Twasso.
And so now my question is very simple. He was part of the team. He attended cabinet meetings. And I even suspect that at some times he presided over cabinet meetings. Okay. Now, these wrong policies, decisions were taken on these wrong policies for implementation. He didn't like the policies. Okay? From what he's saying today, he obviously didn't like the policies. So, Dr. Bawumia is telling us that he was defeated in cabinet. He was either defeated in cabinet or he didn't fight over these policies. Do you understand? Now, if he didn't fight over these policies, it raises substantial questions about his character, about his trustworthiness, that he sat in cabinet took decisions that he knew were wrong, which would damage the national economy. He kept quiet, he didn't fight, and those decisions were implemented. What a vice president. What a future president. Now, if he fought and was defeated, okay, it raises another issue of capacity. So it means that he sat in cabinet and couldn't convince his colleagues that what they were about to inflict on Ghana was wrong and unworkable. That's an issue of capacity. He didn't have the capacity. He didn't have the arguments. He didn't have the facts to convince his fellow cabinet members. My goodness. And he wants to be president. What a president he will be. I can't believe it. And he said all these things. Unexpected applause. Expected that all these things he had said would push the people of Ghana to make him president. Now, I've said this before and I'm going to repeat it. And I'm going to use his own, how do you call it? His own words. Not words, really. But listen. The man says that he's an apprentice, the driver's mate. Apprentice, the driver's mate. Now, if you go to the petrol station, the only skill the apprentice has or displays, so Abakala pass, Abakala pass, Abakala pass. Everybody can do that. Anybody can do that.
Yes, that is it. It's also your mate dear. We mate we do my way and say Abakala pass. Ay, Charlie, couldn't want me, couldn't wear zero. Bawumia. Yentwaso.
Just hang on to the door of the bus and be shouting, yes, Abekala pass, Abekala pass, Abekala pass. The skills of the driver are much more. The driver has to have the capacity to anticipate. You understand? The driver really knows that all the 23 lives in the Mercedes-Benz bus, are in his hands and so on. The driver is a thoughtful person. The driver makes decisions and so on. So, for the last 7 years, all that Bawumia did was to be shouting, Abekala pass, Abekala pass, Abekala pass. And he enjoyed all the perks just for shouting Abekala pass. And that's how he sees himself. He sees himself just as an aplanke. For 7 years he was an aplanke, shouting Abekala pass. Can't believe it. But that's how Bawumia sees himself. In any case, and I've said this before, it's not new, I'm going to repeat it. All of us, 5 of us, who joined the bus that is going to Insaum, a commercial bus going to Insaum. When we get to Caprice, the driver parks the car, says, I'm coming. Then he goes into a blue kiosk. He cuts 2 halves straight. I know that stuff is measured in quarters, halves, and fourths. Yes. So this driver, he cuts 2 halves straight away. And then on top of that, he takes an energy drink. And he's staggering towards the bus. The apprentice knows that this is what the driver has done, his boss has done. The apprentice doesn't protest. He doesn't alert the passengers. Nothing. He sits there. He says, oh, one day I'll be the driver. So I can forget this one. My brother, that bus would not get to Fanko. It will crash and kill the people in it. And if that bus does not get to Fanko, crashes and kills the people in it, are you telling me that the apprentice is innocent and bears no responsibility for the accident? The apprentice who kept quiet, who didn't complain, who just waited his turn to be the driver. What kind of an apprentice is that? What kind of an apprentice is that? But this is what Dr. Bawumia says that he is. I'm not saying that he is. He himself says that he's an aplanke. Because I don't believe that he was an aplanke. But if you have to take his words seriously, who would trust such an aplanke? You see, it doesn't end there. Dr. Bawumia tells us that, look, of months more, maybe 10 months more and so on, I will become president. Things are very bad now. My own government has imposed e-levy on you and you are suffering. Don't worry. Wait for another 10 months. When my boss is out of the way, I will take over and I will abolish your suffering e-levy. I can't believe it. I can't believe that he said that to us. Sana, can you believe that he said that to us? That we should continue suffering for 10 months. And that until he becomes president, e-levy will hang on our neck. Hey, this man. What does he think of himself? If e-levy is bad, if all the things he wants to ban are bad, why doesn't he speak now and ask for their removal now? Why should we wait for 10 months? Why? What have we done wrong?
Against a Ghana for ye Jimmy. Ye Jimmy, ya dream more into a plan work. We plan work a prank bi na ope so play the to Ghana for so nti ye de mana oba na wabeye de ope
We done to Bawumia that he wants us to suffer for another 10 months. And then when he becomes president, he will then pity us. Now he has no pity for us. When he has become president, he will pity us and remove this burden which was placed on us with his blessing. I can't believe it. There's something else. And I'm not making this up. Anybody who has watched the presentation of budgets over the last 7 years cannot forget this image of Ken Oforiatta carrying his custom-made bag and being followed by Dr. Bawumia to Parliament House. Administration that I've noticed that the vice president religiously follows the finance minister to Parliament House. That symbolism, what was it meant to portray? Why has Bawumia been always following Ken Oforiatta to Parliament? Clearly, it's an endorsement, it's a statement of endorsement of the party.
Sure. What following from 2017 ABC Sambre. So that how and on HS and a year Kwesi Pratt in some okay nanny. Debia Ken Oforiatta sorriness over kind budget or parliament. Bawumia Edinichi Onyakran Kobejin handbag in a customized bag in Kobeja Kuta, no shed white. So what does that mean? Means a budget moon sem the Odibainam, Bawumia, you endorse it. So you endorse it and they didn't tell me now catch a gun for say levy and it those kind of tax best taxness at the cake over abolition. You think say Ghana for you Jimmy and mom a young fancy. On some see Bawumia Nankasan is a confused person. He needed medical attention, said he requested Pratt and he can never be president of Ghana. He can never. Upon Kosombra from Bawumia can never be a president of Ghana. Men American, yes, I'm saying it on record. Bawumia can never, because the way a portray a sign of say the Kufadu now jitum. I fear wo Kufadu we need the Makotanasi. A planning a catch Ghana for say me pass the Kufadu yen me yenisa. I have my own style of leadership. If I say go the kwa sebi ye baby only a kobe who says we are working so Bawumia is just an empty person and coming as an empty leader and come to do empty things. Yakupon sham na onfa na adom na endomo. It is sanity. Subscribe for the latest update. Nabusia ye the program be ba mini mami roye be abruchiri abrabo and then you best start it, which is 7 p.m. because of wake up on anything you be point them cry before say 8 in bebo enti wo peso ti abrochire mu nsem abrochire mu abrabo said ya kodana eneme koso ewo abrochire amene ma me roye bi ewo UK mene no yebedi hu kom live on Mega TV hanam live inti mesre wada subscribe na like dwumadie no for latest update 7 p.m. every Sunday bian it be ba 7 p.m. na so metimi ahudi ekoso ewo aman so emu ensem Yakupon sham bye bye be say